Good afternoon. Having a little technical difficulty, I apologize. I'm here to introduce today's speaker, an entrepreneur, small business owner, leader, and visionary, but probably most importantly, my father, Suhas Kulkarni. He has an extensive bio that we don't have time to get into here, but I would like to take a minute to mention his far-reaching community involvement here in Louisville. He's the founder and chairman of the Indian Professional Council of Kentucky, past president and board member of Crane House Asia Institute, board member of the Venture Connectors, board member of the World Affairs Council of Kentucky and Southern Indiana, and former chair of the Vote Awards Selections Committee. I also wanted to share a small part of my family's story with you today. We moved here from India in 1986. My father had been an executive in one of the oldest and largest industrial steel corporations in India and globally. He moved to Louisville and went from corporate life to running a small corner grocery store in the heart of Germantown. Now back then, there weren't as many international people in Louisville, and folks had a hard time pronouncing my parents' names, Suhas and Sureka. So for the entire time that we ran the store, the neighborhood nicknamed them simply Sam and Sue. Louisville has changed a lot since then, and is now in a position to leverage its growth to become not just a competitive city in Kentucky or a competitive city in the US, but a globally competitive city. My parents left their lives in India so that their children would be raised in a country where every possibility is real and every opportunity within reach. My father's task now is to make sure that the world is aware of the potential that Louisville has to offer and vice versa. I'll now turn it over to him to explain the why and the how. But fellow Rotarians and guests, please join me in welcoming our speaker today, my father and the City of Louisville's Director of the Office for Globalization.
Every time she said my father or my parents, something happened here. It tugs at your heartstrings. And I tell you, it seems to me that everyone should have the good fortune of having one of their offspring introduce them. It's just an awesome experience. I just have to share this with you. Well, what I'm going to do today is kind of introduce to you, one, through my life, the life of an immigrant in Louisville, Kentucky. America obviously is a country of immigrants, but we are concerned about immigrants that have been here for the past maybe 20 or 30 years, and maybe for the next 20 or 30 years for us to see the impact of people who have come here and those who will come after us. I'm going to kind of go through some periods of my life, but what I'd like you to do is also remove from your mind my face as the person who's going through this or my family, and also put in your minds an immigrant or a refugee who would have come into the United States, because for the most part, they follow the same trail. This is an opening slide. I serve Mayor Greg Fisher as the Director for Globalization since 2011. But prior to that, I was in India, as Nima said. We lived there from until 1985. And I'm going to demonstrate some of these things. This is me when I was fairly young in front of a very old temple in India. It's called the Sun Temple in the eastern part of India. This is the school that I went to, run by Jesuits. My house in India. My mother with a gardener, again, in our house. A car that we owned when I was less than 30 years old, which is all to say that I had a privileged life. I was extremely lucky, extremely fortunate. I'm very fortunate even today to have a wonderful family, and I've had the wonderful experience that I have and my family have seen coming to America since 1986. We tried real hard, my wife and I, to make the children a little bit more musical. I don't know whether we succeeded. This is my beautiful wife in our lovely apartment in Calcutta in the early 80s. My son celebrating his birthday is my wife. And of course, that's Nima wanting to look all grown up in a sari. Even at that age, she knew exactly what everything meant, and nobody could tell her anything. And then we came across a situation where we found in the early 80s that our son, who is now 36 years old, could not pass kindergarten. In India, being a highly competitive country, education is very important. And it became obvious to my wife and I that one of the absolutely fundamental things that we need to do is to help take care of my son and Nima and our own family. I again had an extremely good fortune of working for Tata Steel, a very generous employer who paid for my son and I to come to the United States in 1985. And we went through various motions of trying to figure out what's wrong with him. The word dyslexia was not in anybody's lexicon in India and hardly anybody's lexicon in the United States. And we had the extremely good fortune through a series of coincidences of getting to the DePaul School and meeting at that time with Sister Anne Rita Mock. And today we've got Tony Kemper, I noticed him here, and Otto, also from the DePaul School. And 6 weeks that we spent in the DePaul School really told us that this is exactly the kind of thing that our son needs. But I had a wonderful job in India, no reason to move, and so there was the dilemma. And I studied how to teach dyslexics for 6 weeks, went back to India. That picture is of our son with the DePaul School pennant trying to reproduce the DePaul School in our apartment in Calcutta, India. Needless to say, that didn't really succeed too well. We did not get enough of a groundswell of other students. I could not educate myself. I had a job to keep, a very responsible job. And so we came to a crossroads in about March of 1986, and we decided that we have to, for the sake of our children, move to the United States. Very brave. But that bravado, very soon after our arrival, changed into almost panic, because I could not find a job. I could not see other people like me who were trying to make a go at it in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I started a series of activities, and the next photograph is really me, again at a fairly young age, with a company that I had started called Omnisys. So what I'm going to cover today is the fact that I spent almost 6 months looking for a job and couldn't find a job in Louisville, Kentucky. I have a master's in business, 12 years of great experience with a large company. I was an executive, but could not find a job. We tried to survive. We lived in an apartment, my wife and I, ran through our savings. She used to type up term papers for U of L students to earn money, which we did. And we kept on looking to saying, what's the next step? How do we survive? I had a lot of experience, a lot of expertise in different areas. One of the expertise that I had was in earth-moving equipment, construction equipment, and I learned therefore the art of buying construction equipment and parts here in the United States, as well as exporting, and I started an export company called OmniTrade International, which survived from 1988 to 1991. In the meantime, of course, obviously, that was not a predictable business. I had to find customers, I had to find sources of supply, do some value engineering, etc., etc. So we didn't know from one day to the next whether there would be income. And so we wanted a steady source of income. And we bought in Germantown at the crossing of Swan and Oak, a grocery store called 828 Supermarket. And it was 828. We opened at 8, closed at 8. And this was owned by a Palestinian. And I remember the first day when we bought the store, this was again through some fancy footwork in financing, whoever's in finance. But the first day we walked in, the previous owner showed us around the store, and we didn't know what the heck he was talking about. Who knew anything about ham and cheese, or pimento cheese, or this brand of cigarettes? Or that? We had no idea. And he also showed us under his counter was a gun. He said, "You should keep this pistol here." Oh wait, they can have all the money that they want, but I'm never going to keep a gun there. So we went through the process of learning how the store is to be run. We had this to my mind was our glorious moment of understanding what America is all about. Because we met people in different social strata, different economic strata, different forms of families, some with whole families, some with no families. And I tell you, that was the best experience we had. Everybody came out to help, everybody was open, and to us, America was not what it was made out to be, racial divides, etc., etc. But this was a whole community living together and working together in Germantown, Louisville. So that was, I have to give a plug for Germantown of those days. I don't know what it is now, but it was just an enormous experience, and that was a great foundation for us because we understood that at the core, whether you are an American or whether you're an Indian or whether you are from any other part of the world or any economic strata, they're essentially the same. And essentially, it's the few things that will motivate us to be together and to advance together. In time, Omnitrade International got into trouble because there was a recession in India and in some of the other countries that I was exporting to. And I had to step back, again, figure out how in the world I'm going to sustain a family. Luckily, an opportunity in information technology came along and I started a firm which I ran from, and it still exists in some shape or form, from 1992-93 till today. And Omnisys and Omnitrade and Omnisys gave us the sustenance to be steady. And in 2010, after having gone through various peaks and valleys in my life, after Mayor Fisher won, he had made a promise to revive what used to be called the Office of International Affairs. And in conversations, he said, we need to revive this office. And we were brainstorming over things, and we kind of decided that there is no such thing as international affairs in Louisville, Kentucky. There's no problem in terms of internationals that we can solve. But what is absolutely important is that Louisville, Kentucky should then become an international city, should become a global city with everything that it encompasses. So I want to trace for you very briefly, how does the foreign-born come to Louisville? One of the ways that we all see is people come in here as refugees or asylees. They run from conflict areas or places like Cuba or Haiti, and there are different visa and different treatment methods for different forms of people who come in here. Now, typically, the process is the UNHCR, the UN High Commissioner on Refugees, would reach out to the USRP, that is the United States Resettlement Program, which is run by the State Department. In fact, it is called PRM, and that's the acronym by which it is known. And our equivalent or our relationship with PRM is through Catholic Charities and Kentucky Refugee Ministries in Louisville, Kentucky. And so people would then come with, through the USCIS, they would come to Louisville, and Catholic Charities and KRM are part of what is called VOLAG, Voluntary Resettlement Agencies. One thing to be noted is that anybody who comes to this program has sustenance only for 90 days. The other way people come in here are as temporary workers. People come in as H-1Bs. Nima knows much more about this. So people who have actual work permits to come and work here. People come in here also as students. They come as students with an F1 visa. You can retain an F1 visa until you have a PhD or until you go take a job, as long as you're in a university. So we've seen people come in even at universities at the undergraduate level and stay as until their PhDs and in the F1 status. And then they go ahead and get a job, get a H1, and then maybe a green card. Immigrants come in specifically with a green card. And all of the above, refugees, temporary workers, students, all of them become green card holders at some point in time, and 5 years of residence in the United States, people become citizens of the US and can vote. The other way people come in here are as investors, and this is one of our objectives in Louisville, Kentucky, to try to get more investors in our city. And the other thing that we are very interested in doing is to reach out, make our city attractive for secondary migration of all of the above from the rest of the United States into our economy. The common denominator is all of these folks require jobs or the ability to get into business in order to survive and to stay in their geography. Two photographs of communities. The Oromo community is an ethnic group that encompasses Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia. And these folks have come to Louisville, Kentucky as refugees, but they do not need much assistance. They're fairly self-sufficient. The bottom photograph is that of Ahiska Turks. Ahiska Turks have moved all over the world. In fact, they were lately at Georgia in Russia, near Russia, and then Uzbekistan, and then they came to the United States from there under refugee status. This community is astounding. There are about 180 families, and 140 of them have bought homes. They have started businesses, and one of the businesses that they have really succeeded in is the transportation business. They help each other, and they have 60 tractors in their community right here in Louisville, Kentucky. And they have truck drivers, and they own all these tractors, and they are looking forward to expanding their business as they go forward. And there are many more examples of people who come from India and Pakistan and various other countries who have become more and more self-sufficient after having come to Louisville. I want to walk you through some of these numbers. Why is this important? Between the time I came here and today, the number of immigrants in our community has quadrupled and still increasing by the day. The same thing for the state of Kentucky. The only difference is that within the state we have an influx which caters to the equine industry and agriculture, and so the graph is a little steeper there. The percentage of foreign-born people in our community right now is 6.43%, as reported by the Census Bureau. It was less than 1% when I came in. Folks come in here from Latin America, and lately they have come from Asia, a very large percentage. In fact, after probably the Hispanic population, the largest population of immigrants are Indians, Chinese, and Vietnamese. Age ranges, all of these things are pretty similar to the native born, but you can notice that a very large percentage are between 25 and 44 years of age. So a lot of people come in and they often bring their parents who are not really employable at that time. Educational achievement, pretty similar to what we have. The high school graduation rate for people who come in here is slightly higher, but the college graduation rates are lower because they have not had the opportunity to go to college. Employment status, the majority, 64%, are employed, as opposed to 58% in the native born. Various occupations, management, business, science, arts, service occupations, as you probably know, more than maybe more than 50% of all the hospitality, hotels, and motels are owned by a community from India called the Patels. And you're probably familiar with that. So, where do people come in from? They come from Latin America, they come from Europe, they come from Asia, but that's the larger population in our community. So based on this, this is important because where do we stand with the rest of our competitive cities? The fastest growing cities for immigrant populations, immigration hubs in the USA, we are number 4. The fastest growing is Nashville, followed by Birmingham and Indianapolis. But in sheer numbers of people, Charlotte is highest. Can everybody see this? I think it's a little, no you can't, okay. So Charlotte is the highest in sheer numbers, but in terms of growth, we are number 4. Why is this important? This is very important because in today's world, cities more than countries will make the impact. Cities have been recognized as the economic hubs which will make the future of a country. And you've probably heard the mayor over and over again reiterate the fact that cities become very important. So we as a city, establishing ourselves in the global or international marketplace is extremely critical. Because if we don't, there are others that are already doing it, and they're going to succeed. Globalization is the increasing integration of three things: economics, societies, and culture, which is symbolized in the movement of money, goods, people, ideas, and jobs. Urban competitiveness, we never thought about this. Why would we as a city compete with another city in the United States? But it is true. Urban competitiveness has become the byword. Everybody is competing with each other. It's not just countries trying to attract different things. It's not just states trying to attract different economic investments, etc. It's also cities. So we have to make ourselves as a city very attractive. We have to make ourselves as a city worthy of being noticed by others all over the world. The other thing that I noticed was this is about innovation, and why I picked on innovation is because innovation is very critical to capital formation, as Henry you would know. And where we are, Louisville, Kentucky is called a node, which is okay, we distribute. But Kansas City, Kansas is a hub along with New York City and Atlanta. So I started to think about how can we measure what we do and what's important. So there are two studies that really tell us the same story. One study from A.T. Kearney was the Global Cities Index, and essentially it tells us that business activity or economics, jobs, money, human capital, workforce, and the ability of people to find jobs and the ability of workforce to kind of support new activities within the region is very important. Obviously, the third is cultural experience, or the fact that the city should be able to attract the people who want to work here. So the paradigm that people will go where the jobs are is changing slightly, that jobs will come to where people want to live. So we need to make our city very attractive to people who want to come and live here, and jobs will follow. The Economist also has a similar analysis. Human capital, 15%, economic strength, 30%, global appeal. We will never have the Rockies or an ocean near us because of that, people are not going to migrate to us automatically like they would to the coastal areas. But they will come to us not just because of our quality of life, but because we can provide them with a city and a population that they can thrive in. This again you cannot see very obviously, but New York City, if you can notice, it extends all the way. It has all the factors in good measure, as opposed to at the bottom are places like even Mumbai and Calcutta, which have huge populations and have been very progressive in the past, but they do not have all the factors that A.T. Kearney and the Economist have identified as competency measures. So this is from the White House about immigrants starting businesses and more activities about immigrants who have 28% of all new business startups in the past few years. In fact, this number is going up. This is of 2011. 2012 and 2013, we probably will see more. That immigrants are starting new businesses all the time, and they are the fastest growing and the most sustainable businesses that our country has experienced. In different fields, leisure and hospitality, professional and business services, healthcare and social assistance, educational services, wholesale and retail, and construction. So my objective as Director for Globalization was to encompass these three factors. Number one, make ourselves culturally vibrant, a city that we would not only like to live in, but enjoy, and also be attractive as a city to other people to come in and enjoy our city. These are some photographs of WorldFest. 2013. We just concluded over Labor Day, hot Labor Day. So you've got people from the Congo cooking up a storm. You've got folks from Mexico. You see those ladies out there. This is getting ready for the Parade of Cultures. And this is, of course, the Rotary booth with Otto and Rick and my own pride and joy. Numbers of people. This was the hottest day of the year. But look at the smiles on their faces. They were really enjoying it. And I've had people tell me that they've had friends and relatives come from Nashville, of course from Lexington, and Elizabethtown, etc., etc. This was just awesome. Everybody was streaming with sweat. It was so hot and humid. But these ladies in their wonderful dresses were twirling away. I mean, beautiful dancing up on the Belvedere. The Parade of Cultures, with so many, there were 50 different nations represented in our Parade of Cultures. So one of the things that I'm doing based on that is to form the Mayor's International Council. So we have in JCPS almost 100 languages being spoken. GLIP boasts of 150 member countries. So what we're doing is we are forming these councils so that people from different communities get an opportunity to express themselves and participate as part of our economic and our community. One program that I've started very lately is a collaborative between different organizations. So the Small Business Administration, SDDC, Jewish Family and Career Services, our own Metro Community Action Partners, etc. We're forming a group which will help immigrants get into business. And that, there is a lot more detail to this, and I don't have the time to go into this. But this collaborative is something that we are very proud of, and we want to make it a successful initiative so that we can get our own people 28% or more to be successful in terms of business. This was another initiative called Career Opportunities and Resources for Employment, which really helps people get jobs. And our objective is to make Louisville an international city and retain financial and human capital in the heartland of America. So what I want to show you is that if we sustain economic strength through international trade and foreign investments, maintain our cultural vibrancy through festivals, and create an international city where we can even think about an international enclave. You know, visitors will come in and enjoy themselves. And human capital with workforce and people getting into businesses, etc. We could potentially have talent attraction, capital formation, and a great quality of life, which will make our city, economically very viable. I need to stop now. I see somebody waving their hand. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I know we were short on time, tried to breeze through as much as I could at the speed that I could. But I want to thank Rotary, and I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity for coming here.